what we're going to see is pretty much all the smaller non-program orders for drones and other parts are all going to hit in August and September of this year. So there's this really compressed sort of, it's almost like Christmas buying window for the government for this category this year. And we've really tried to put ourselves in a position to be available. And I think the next couple of months are going to be fast and furious for companies like ours.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Stuart Smith with SmallCapVoice.com, and you are tuned in to another online business briefing. And I know if you saw our watch list, which we just issued on July 16th, 2024, you know I'm excited about our next guest and his company. That's Unusual Machines Incorporated. They're traded on the NYSE American under the ticker symbol UMAC, and we're lucky enough to be joined by the CEO of that company, and that's none other than Allan Evans. Allan, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for making time for us.
Stuart, I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Your news, I mean, you haven't seen the watch list yet. We got a little goofy around your news because we just thought some of the names and some of the products and just what you're doing were just so cool, so amazing. They fit in right with one of our other clients that's also traded on the NYSE American, and that's KULR. But we'll talk about those drones a little bit later. We'll hit that recent news, but let's get the foundational blocks for the company first. If you will, tell us about the business model and the markets that you operate in.
Appreciate it. And we're pretty recently public, listed in February, and then acquired two subsidiaries, Rotor Riot and Fat Shark, from Red Cat Holdings. That's the starting point of the business, and that is very much a consumer business. We have an e-commerce channel that sells drones and drone parts to enthusiasts who will put together their own drones, etc. And it's pretty interesting that, like last year, we sold 15,000 of our hype train motors. So it's big enough for us to start to look at supply chains. At the same time, there's a real interest in supply chains for drones from a lot of the drone manufacturers, whether they're international or domestic. And we're trying to add really a business segment this year, and I think we're moving down that road pretty successfully, of doing drone parts that are sourced outside of China. So mostly made in America, but more NDAA compliant or approved for US use as we go forward. And that's our growth vector, I'd say, to match what we're doing in consumer, which is, 30% margin, 20 to 30% year-over-year growth.
Okay, well, that's a great starting point. We're going to dive into a lot of that a little bit deeper. But before we go any further, let's learn about you as our guest. You are the leadership, the CEO of the company, and the team you have assembled around yourself. Go ahead, Allan.
My background's in venture. I was actually originally a PhD engineer and decided I'd move into management somewhere along the lines by starting a company. Did VR, AR headsets, raised a lot of money in Silicon Valley, and started then to spend a lot of time in China doing manufacturing. So about 100 nights a year for 10 years in China. Over that time, became the CEO of Fat Shark, which does all the goggles for drones. And then we merged that into Red Cat Holdings, which is on the Nasdaq and is a drone company, helped drive the transition there to build out Teal Drones, which is now becoming a pretty significant US drone manufacturer, and then took over the CEO role here. The great thing is the COO, Andrew Camden, has been with the company for a very long time, and we were together at Red Cat. So there's a lot of continuity there. And then Brian Hoff, our CFO, has got a lot of public experience, and we're all sort of in that in the same age range where there's definitely a hunger. We really believe that for microcap, it's our responsibility to investors that if we're right and if we hit it, it's got to be that 10x size return to offset the risk for investment in this category. And we're fully bought into that and believe that the enterprise market, just for drone parts last year was like $20 billion. Mm-hmm. And so we see an ability to really capture a pretty good chunk of that, and we're excited about it.
As you should be. I mean, we will talk about the CAGR a little bit later as well in this market, the drone market, and your news has done a great job of keeping people informed on the market potential, and your growth within that market. Again, use that ticker symbol to find more about this company, UMAC. So let's talk about the company so far here in the year 2024. As you just pointed out at the outset, the company did its IPO in February 2024, but you have been incredibly busy and prolific since then. And I've got a couple of follow-up questions within this, but as you see it, what are some of the milestones your company's been able to achieve so far here in 2024?
I think the coolest one is the one very recently where we launched our first, NDAA compliant US made flight controller product. There is a big gap in the marketplace for FPV products that are certified for US government use. And the challenge really is not only did we launch that product, but it's at a very competitive price with the other Chinese products. So going through and doing that and then building out the rest of our roadmap for US made or alternative made products has been a really big push. Our team's done a great job of going after it. We're excited that we're starting to roll them out.
Well, and you bring up government sales, and let me ask you a little bit about that for our viewers and listeners who may not be really well versed in this, and it can be incredibly complicated. Talk to me about seasonality and other trends we should be aware of within government sales.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to go at a high level because this is how I think about it. There's way more detail. The government fiscal year ends September 30th. There's a whole lot of budgetary money that is use it or lose it. So if they don't spend it, it goes away. This year is particularly interesting in that there was that continuing resolution last year where the government didn't pass a budget. So most of the buyers in the government didn't even get their budgets till May. Now, there's a lot of sort of different divisions inside the government because it's a big company that all have to sign off on getting an order placed. So it generally takes about 3 months. What we're going to see is pretty much all the smaller non-program orders for drones and other parts are all going to hit in August and September of this year. So there's this really compressed sort of, it's almost like Christmas buying window for the government for this category this year. And we've really tried to put ourselves in a position to be available. And I think the next couple of months are going to be fast and furious for companies like ours that are, really in a position to see those awards, but that are still waiting because of the delays to see the first ones start to show up.
Well, that really goes right into my next question very well. Thank you for that. So talking about the rest of then 2024, operationally speaking, as the CEO, once again, what are some of your goals that you'd like to see the company achieve?
Great, great question, really. What we're looking at is we want to see some of those orders, the enterprise orders from suppliers to the government. So then we'll scale in to do build out for that. What's crazy for us is we move right into October and then holiday season, and we're a consumer company. So we're excited to see how much of the domestic production we can include in products for consumers that really believe in America and start to see substantial penetration of those into the market. And then January next year, we expect the government budgets to reset, and we really look at the consumer and the enterprise cycles as they're out of phase, and so they complement each other, and that we're either in a consumer cycle or an enterprise cycle. And so we expect to ride peaks as we go through the next couple of years.
Well, let's talk about some of that recent news. And you hit a headline for today on the dateline, July 16th, 2024, that we're going to get into in just a second. But this isn't a current event. This is an ongoing current event, though, which is the war in Ukraine. And drones have made a big headline, not only there, but in the conflict between Israel and Hamas as well. We've seen a lot of drone video, a lot of drone attack drones on video. Obviously, this is an evolution of warfare. Talk to me a little bit about how the war in Ukraine is going to impact your industry.
The war in Ukraine has accelerated people's awareness of robotics in the same way Tesla self-driving has. You look at these factors, and war is terrible, but in war, people are willing to take more risks. And so it tends to accelerate development of new technologies and accelerate adoption of new technologies. That acceleration and awareness driven by these conflicts has sort of come back home and has caused the government, and not just the military, but the FAA, the different groups, to really start to consider drones. I think at a much faster, much higher scale. What is particularly interesting about that is they now consider drones a critical technology. So a few years ago, you saw Huawei and a few of the chip companies and some of the elements there, and then the CHIPS Act. So we bring back some manufacturing because the supply chain was a consideration. And not having any domestic supply became a risk because these are critical infrastructure technologies. That same perspective is now how the government looks at drones. And they're very concerned right now that 90% of the drone ecosystem all comes out of China. And they see this as an infrastructure risk, even more than just a conflict risk. Yeah, I mean, you could imagine if medical parts are being delivered all over the place using drones, and a hurricane hits Shenzhen and we can't get any of the drone parts, does our hospital system fall apart? And so I think really, even beyond the short term, the long term thinking that we're seeing out of everybody says, hey, we need a domestic industry that is big enough to serve at least a part of our own country. And I think that's really forward looking.
Well, it absolutely is. Let's hit that recent headline then. I gave the date line out just a moment ago, July 16, 2024. Here's the headline: Unusual Machine launches NDAA compliant, made in the USA flight controller for FPV drones. A couple of acronyms in there that I want you to go over for us. For those who may not have the press release in front of them, it's going to magically appear over my shoulder right now and probably over my ugly face in just a second so that they can read this. But let's hear it from you. NDAA compliant. Let's start with that. What is that?
National Defense Authorization Act.
Okay.
So most of these restrictions, just like the Huawei ban or the DJI drone ban, they're in the NDAA, which is one of the budget elements. They also have sort of procurement requirements in there. So this means it's meets the requirements for auditing and made in the USA and non-sourced from any critical location, based on the government's desire to diversify where things are manufactured.
And let's talk about then what is an FPV drone.
FPV stands for first person view. That generally refers to the ones where people wear goggles, but could also be a screen. It's more of the backpack size sport drones typically. And where people will have the most familiarity with this is if they've ever seen drone racing on TV, or most of the videos in Ukraine where they fly in and do things. They're much more nimble and agile. Drones that most people are familiar with from like DJI, if you let go of the sticks, they float, they'll hover. These types of sport drones, if you let go, they will definitely crash. So there's a little more skill involved in piloting them.
Well, very cool. And this is let's talk about then this part of the market size, this particular segment of the drone market, its growth potential, and where you hope to fit in.
Consumer globally, we've always estimated to be around $100 million across the board for finished product. And, we fit in there, we sell to consumers, we're doing okay. I think we have pretty well established brands, et cetera. What we see as particularly interesting is everybody in this segment buys drone parts. The drone parts market, motors, batteries, flight controllers, that's about $20 billion a year. And so we really see building great drone parts for the segment that we operate in, for the hobbyist segment, but then also building drone parts for other manufacturers, like Teal Drones or Skydio or any of the delivery companies. They also need robust supply chains. So instead of trying to just go be all of FPV and the biggest brand, we think we can better serve our customers and a much larger industry by making really great drone parts and then keeping the cost as competitive as possible.
Love it. Once again, we are speaking with Unusual Machines Incorporated, traded on the NYSE American under the ticker symbol UMAC, and we're joined by their CEO, Allan Evans. So, Allan, before I let you go, any closing thoughts or comments for your existing investors, but of course also the potential investors who are going to be tuning in? One thing that has stuck with me throughout this interview is how important and how you've emphasized made in the USA. Let me get some closing thoughts and comments from you.
We're really excited about bringing manufacturing for critical industries back onshore. We do everything in Orlando. And one of the things that I really appreciate about this investment community and investing in general is it creates a snowball. So if people believe in what we're doing, that belief, it being public lets us go harder and faster and stronger. And we really just want to say first, thank you to everybody who believes and is an investor. But for those of you who think that what we're doing makes sense, your investment helps this become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we really just appreciate that as we try to bring more and more domestic.
Outstanding. Well, the way to learn about this company is that ticker symbol UMAC. You pull up a recent piece of news, you can socialize with the company, you can find the company website, but use that ticker symbol to do so because I, of course, want you to look at a detailed quote on the company. I want you to go back through the news flow for the company, see what they've been up to since their IPO in February of 2024. Allan, what a great interview. Thanks so much for making time for us. We look forward to more great things from you and your company. Best of luck to you and your team here in 2024 and well beyond.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
You as well. For Allan Evans, this is Stuart Smith saying, hey, make sure to hit that subscribe button, the like button, and also leave comments for us and Allan. If you have any questions for the company, we'll make sure to put them right in front of that CEO right there, Allan Evans. For Allan, this is Stuart saying thanks so much for tuning in.